and welcome to another episode of Straight Talk. I'm one of your hosts today, Michael Stalk Sr., and we have today with us the usual
Montour.
Jessica Deer.
And as you can see, we have Mr. Bo Curotte. But that's his slave name, I think, or well, Carl is your slave name. Isn't it?
Slave name, Bo, Tariwayanis. I've been called everything under the sun, but I still answer to it.
As you know, the fourth chair, we always leave it open to community members that would like to come in and discuss different issues or sit on the show and to go over what we're discussing at the same time, and it's always open. So feel free to contact us and come in and enjoy the show. So welcome.
Thank you very much. I hope I can contribute some.
Believe me, you will. You're not banned from here yet.
That's about the only place. And I'm still loving the post office. That's true.
It's funny because social media in this community is crazy. We're so political about everything. And somebody was saying to me the other day, it's like, how come this part of the country where it's so political, and if you go to other provinces, it's not even in the mainstream politics, they're not as political as I guess in Ontario and Quebec and or the Ottawa area where it's I think maybe this is the hub of politics. But if you go further west, they're not fighting with their politicians or questioning like they do here.
Well, one of the things is different, though. I mean, if you go outside, go any jurisdiction outside, you go to Quebec, you go to Montreal, go to Ontario, go to Ottawa, wherever you want to go, okay? Those people are all basically operating from the same perspective. In other words, they all agree that their system is what it is, okay? That their political bodies are what they are, and everybody plays according to those rules, including opposition, including the way to dissent and the way to resolve those things, and even discuss issues from the populace and so on. They're playing on the same field, the same page. Whereas here, what we have is that we have really a dichotomy, two different, almost you'd say, worldviews. You'd say the elected system, and then you have traditional people, and then you have maybe people in between who haven't sort of aligned themselves to one or the other. But those things become fundamentally different. So they become more passionate kinds of debates.
But if you look at it, I'm talking like say Saskatchewan and that, even the native communities there are not. I don't know. I guess they fight for what they want, but it seems like they're in what I see anyway in the media is that it's a little more, I guess, acceptance or complacency or something.
Well, it's again. I'm sorry.
We also have a lot of media here in Kahnawake compared to other native communities, which I think does make a difference because it promotes like a lot of, I think the dissent and discussions in the community.
But I think even though there's different media, like there's media organizations like APTN, there's media organizations like Windspeaker and so on, and what Mike is saying, though, is it does seem to be a lot tamer. I'll use that term, not to be derogatory, but one of the things that's different unless you go to certain places and you get into a conversation with more traditionally minded people, what you'll find is that a lot of places you don't have the distinction of say the Longhouse people, is they have a very distinct history of wishing to be and believing in being treated as a nation apart from Canada or the U.S. and out west they don't. A lot of the band councils or the communities out there don't really see that way. It seems a lot of them don't really have an issue with being both say Cree and Canadians.
That's what I find strange sometimes. That I remember I had gone to a conference in Alberta, and there were some individuals that were there, and they were Métis. And one of the women that was as a presenter, she was, I don't know what, she was a president or something of the Métis here, and she was saying that she's Canadian first and Métis second. And it was a room that was filled with a lot of Mohawks from Ganawage, from Agwazasane, from Six Nations and Onondaga. We were sitting in there because we wanted to. It was about policing and things like that. But we were like all looked at each other and we were like, Canadian. You never hear that from us before. And half of them left because they were sort of upset because of what she said. I mean, I just started laughing because to have that outlook here.
Yeah.
It's here. They don't even want you to fly a flag. It's like,
I've also like seen those types of sentiments among Anglophones in the Montreal or Quebec area that aren't even native. That they say like they're Italian first or Irish first, rather than saying they're Canadian or Quebecer. Compared to other Canadians who they're Canadian first. They don't say their their lineage.
With regards to what you're saying, a lot of those things that take place out west is because they have made treaties with Canadian government and surrendered most of their rights. There's Treaty 8, Treaty 6, there's all these treaties. And in those treaties, they identified that they are Canadian first. If you recall years back, I again raised quite a stink in the community with arguing with former Chief Joe Norton when he signed into the negotiations to enter self-government. I was totally against it and made it known that Joe was signing it, and Joe denied it for many, many years, denied ever signing self-government. In fact, I don't think he ever admitted it. And today, we're seeing the results of self-government. Many of the things that are occurring in our community are from the outside. So I understand why a lot of people, like what she explained, feel that way. But in regards to us, it's because we have treaties that we have. There's no border regarding our treaties. So that's why we have that fight, and we continue that fight that we are not Canadian, we are not American, we are Ganyageha. That is who we are. We are people of the Flint. We belong to the Horonosonis, 5 Nations Iroquois Confederacy. And me, my understanding is, people ask me, they say, Bo, why are you so angry? I'm angry because it's our own people that's doing this to us. They're keeping us from being who we are. We're being suppressed. I've been doing a lot of research lately, and what I've come to find out is, if I was the federal government, sure, I'd throw $50, $60 million a year to keep us shut up, keep us sitting as we are. Because if we sat rightfully as we are, we would get 1/3 of the GNP, according to the treaties. That's billions of dollars. So think about it. If you were collecting billions of dollars, as the government is, would you not throw $50, $60 million a year to the Mohawks to keep them shut up? Don't let them sit as their forefathers did? I mean, we have so much strength if we sat as our forefathers, only because our Constitution predates the United States and Canada's. And in accordance with international law, we've become the supreme law of the land. Now, what I'm talking won't happen overnight. I'm talking hoping the youth today, they've all went through the school system, our youth. They learned Ganyageha. You learn the language, you know the culture. They sat in council in survival school, learning how our forefathers sat. They have more knowledge of this law and of our identity than us older ones do. Us older ones, it seems the system has pushed us aside, and they're focusing on assimilating the youth. I want to help the youth. We have such tools that our forefathers left us that we should be no longer tenants in our territories, but also actually the landlords, because we have documentation to show, if presented in that white man's court, would prove what I'm saying.
And that brings us to some of the topics that we're going to cover, I guess, later on, or in regards to the laws that are being done right now, and like the election law. Now another law is coming up for, I guess, to review is zoning, the zoning law, and then the casino issue, and that all has to do with how the dynamics are going to work and how the politics are going to play into the community and what's going to happen. And there's going to be a lot of challenges in the next, I guess, few months leading up to the elections. And that's going to be one of the tough things that we're going to have to, this community is going to have to really look at, because everything ties into each other, and we keep saying that it's all tied together as far as with the elections coming up and how everything is playing now. A possible referendum that we'll discuss after, but let's take a break, So when we come back, we'll have more time to discuss that. Hold that thought, Ross. I know that you wanted to say something, but we'll do that we'll do that when we come back, right after these messages. And welcome back to Straight Talk. As usual, before we went to the break, we were talking about politics, and anybody that just turns on this show anyway, and if they see us sitting here in Bo, you know that there's going to be politics involved.
Have I become that?
No, but we pretty well have, so
I'll just add to your fire, that's all.
so somebody's got to feed off that, right?
There you go.
But you know, if you weren't watching the first part, we were just talking about different politics across the country, and you had brought up the points about the I guess self-government, and then subsequently that wasn't added to that, but is part of that is the signing of the 10 agreements and things like that. So that brings us to fast track to today, where we're seeing so many different changes in the community and losses of funding and of right across the board. And then what's the, I guess, the outcome of that again is that casino issue. But before we get to the casino issue, because that's going to be a big topic and discussion amongst us, but let's stay with the election and the laws that are coming down. I think I mentioned it was right now, as of last night, we're on the 29th, so you won't see the show for 4 more years, right? Because there won't be another 29 for 4 years. So, but last night there was a meeting to go over the election law, I understand, and none of us were there, right?
No.
It's just another step in the process of the community decision making process with this election law. That it was like to decide, like, do you want amendments to this law or not?
And today they're having an information session at the service complex, I believe. Any thoughts?
Apparently, though, according to what Bo was telling us before taping, is that there was a number of people who went, and generally the consensus was everybody agreed that something needed to be done to the election law. I don't know what that means. Maybe for some people it means you should just get rid of the election process altogether.
The news reported that approximately 20 people attended the meeting, and they all agreed that amendments had to be done.
Yeah.
And then they went into mention what types of amendments, but I don't recall what they had made mention of. Several people had made.
But I don't think they expected to come to any kind of consensus on this kind of first meeting in terms of
No,
that.
that's
They'll work that
There's
out.
a bigger
later.
picture. What I'm trying to get at is they're using our system, the traditional system, in doing this, only because, as I stated earlier, the elections are no longer under Indian Act, they're under custom. So when they sit people in these meetings, which she's talking to, they're resulting to come to a decision making, they're doing it using the clan system, which I put on Facebook. I asked people to not participate in justifying the band council dragging the canoe aboard the vessel. Because that's in my opinion, that's what's going on.
But it's not a clan system, though. I mean, it's not the clan system.
No, but it's a Montour. It's a bastardization of our culture. That's what it is.
I wouldn't say that specifically, but I think it's like according to like what the MCK has said in the past, that people in Ganawage have complained, like, we want a traditional system, and this is their way to appropriate it.
Well, you used the term appropriation.
Well, yeah, and it's not a bad term. Like, we appropriate things every day.
I'm just saying, but I will say that, somewhere in between you and maybe not using the term that he used, which I would be closer to, is that an appropriation is you take something and you sort of use it to achieve something that you want to do, and that's one view. Okay, it's just like Mike DeLille being on 60 Minutes a couple of years back, talking about the whole issue about gambling in the community, and then claiming to be part of the Iroquois Confederacy, being part of the Haudenosaunee and not being Canadians, when in fact that's a fallacy. If you consider what the band council is, that's an appropriation. If you take and you appropriate all the symbols of something,
Right.
and then you turn it into something else that is not those things, that's a misappropriation.
Yeah, but that's not her term though. That's their term.
It's still appropriation. But
So I thought,
No, but they say themselves, wait a minute, they say themselves, oh, it's not the band, it's not the client system, community's not ready for the client system. But we'll set it up and we'll have these 3 little groups. And it's kind of like it. We're
Utilize
moving
the
towards
structure.
it. But the question is are you really moving towards it? Or are you simply using something to get a manufacturer of consent?
well, it's always going to be that. It's going to be whatever they determine it's going to be based on information that they're trying to get. Because, at the end of the day, they always say consensus. But how is that consensus when, if you only have 20 people? I guess the consensus at this show right now, can we pass laws?
well, that's one of the things that the MCK has even said on multiple times, that they need participation in these types of things in order for it to be successful.
Yeah.
Like, you can't have 25, 50 people making all these laws for the whole community. There needs to be a lot of, a good percentage of the community
Well, let's
participating
question
to
that.
get a real
But
consensus.
you see what's happening though, the council, it's a known fact that they're an outside entity. They're on that vessel. What you're asking is they're trying to take everything that's in this canoe, piece by piece, and put it on that vessel. How are we to remain sovereign or a distinct people aboard that vessel?
But I think that
How are we supposed to float that canoe without our paddle?
Yeah, but I think that I'm not going to defend that, but I think that the unfortunate thing that we've been seeing a lot over the years is that because a lot of people disagree with the Mohawk Council itself, they're not participating or disagree with the process and how things are being done. And it's true that you need some type of consensus when it comes to that at the end of the day, regardless of what it is. But I think that we still need more people to participate somehow. You know what I mean?
Well,
So it makes it.
somebody's
They're not 100% wrong in what they're trying to do, but how do you achieve that at the end of the day? You know what I mean? It's tough to say that we want to make these laws or we want to do this and we want to do that, but what's going to happen? Because you're having different groups saying, well, it doesn't matter what you do, where it doesn't pertain to us, right? That's that.
You can't assert sovereignty. I mean, you can't assert your jurisdiction unless you show you're sovereign. And we have tools to be sovereign, but the council does not want to utilize them. You know.
No, but yeah, no. One of the things is you say we need to have some laws. We need to sort of arrive at decisions about some things. But again, I got to ask, okay, but who's putting forth these things? I'm going to take one law that I know that came directly from a community member, was to ban the sale and manufacture of tobacco products in Ganawage. Okay, and I listened to a discussion about that on television, but it's not going to go any place, and I think people know that and whatever. But if you look at some of the other things that have been brought to the table, whether it's the Justice Act, whether it's the membership thing, whether it's you name it. Okay, who's bringing those things forth, and where are they going is the big question. Because there's a big picture, and there's a way to tie all that stuff together that I don't think people really aren't really being informed about those. When you talk about things about casinos, whether you talk about things with zoning, whether you talk about things about elections, whether you talk about memberships, or we're talking about things that have to do with funding. How do you keep the funding coming? Okay, and those are things that aren't really being talked about, because they are tied together.
The thing is that
Hold a thought, because I'm going to jump on this. I saw a white piece of paper, I think. No, it's time for it to take a break, and we'll carry on. The conversation is just getting lively. Don't go away. We'll be right back with more Straight Talk after these messages.
Welcome back to Straight Talk. Before the break, we were talking about politics and laws, and I'm just gonna wrap up that discussion. Anyone last words?
Well, before I think we were talking about the laws and we were talking about, I guess, the election law and the immediate thing anyway. And I think we agree that that law is not going to go forward and do anything for another year or two, right?
I don't know. I question when it's going to take it into effect because I think it's been long overdue. The council, in my opinion, they don't want the people to know that they've adopted our custom in the elections, and they're trying to keep it low key. I was on the radio last week. While I wasn't on the radio, I sent in a question while Peggy was on the radio with Lori, and Peggy and Lori both eluded the question, said what I said, and made it look like I didn't know what I was talking about. And in fact, I even got an email from Lori telling me to get my facts right. So I says to myself, boy, this place has really got some assimilation being done. And there are certain people in certain places that are tools in doing this. And these are the problems that are in Ganawagi. I mean, I can tell you what the whole problem with Ganawagi is in one word. No.
I'm afraid
4
of that
words.
word.
4 words. We are not all Mohawk.
We're not almost.
There's Ojibwe living here. There's Algonquin. There's Abenakis. There's all different types. If you recall, this was one time called the 7 Nations. Now all of a sudden we get a band council and we're all Mohawks. We wonder why we can't agree on everything. You look around the community, you could see the differences in the features of people. We're not all the same here. We're different nations. And until we get rid of this facade that we're all Mohawks, we're in Mohawk territory, I understand that. And there are Mohawks here, but not everyone is Mohawk. And the way it's set up here by this blood quantum, that's hanging yourself. You're hanging yourself by allowing that to even occur in your community.
And that's the biggest thing right now, that one of the reasons why that the election law, I can't see it being done for years, because the component of the membership law being in there, and the membership law is not even addressed to its fullest and coming up with anything yet. So those have to be done either together, which is almost an impossible task, or they have to be done separately. But what I don't understand is why would they put the election law ahead of the membership law? Is because I think once they can close the gap of the membership law, then everything else will fall into place.
That's right.
Because everything is tied into
Club.
how much Mohawk are you? That's what it comes down to. And it comes down, and then you know what, and I don't want to, like, you know what, we can spin our wheels on that. And I'll give you a thought, and then we're going to go into.
Yeah, no, I just look at Mike. The thing about the whole thing with membership, really, I mean, you have a discussion about kinds of discussions that we've had for decades now in the community. But then you also have to take into account what happened the last time they sent out letters, okay? And the whole thing that come out of that, and the legislation that came down because of cases out west that have to do with human rights and so on. Okay, wait, because then we're getting down to non-discrimination, okay? And so now...
What is that?
It means that the band council, which is empowered by the government of Canada under Canadian laws, cannot have laws which discriminate against Canadians. And since they consider everybody in this community as a Canadian, including the non-natives who are in the community,
That's right.
then you're not going to be able to discriminate. And that's in the law now. Okay. So really, the question now becomes, what will the council have to agree with Canada in its CKR in order to be able to maintain funding, to be able to maintain the course they're on?
So that brings us to the next topic, because one of the and I say it that the membership law is still not, it's got a lot of work to do, right? And now we're looking at the Mohawk Council just decided to go to a referendum
On Monday.
on Monday. They decided to go a referendum for the casino project. Part of that is they're saying that members are going to have a royalty, right?
Uh-huh.
So how can you do that or say that when the membership law isn't done yet? Because who's a member? They're going to do this. They're going to do this. They're going to, if the community decides during a referendum, which anyways we'll talk about that. is decided, and then where's the royalty? Are you a member? Are you a member? Are you a member? Or is it
Cause more friction.
Today you might be a member. Tomorrow you won't be. So as money starts being generated potentially for if the casino went, then who dictates who's a member and who's not?
The
again?
horse is in front of the cart again.
So
I think it's a valid thing to think about, but I don't think we're there yet quite. Like they just announced that we're gonna have a referendum now, which by the way, someone on this panel said that they weren't gonna have a referendum. They were determined that they weren't gonna, and I called it.
well,
Wait a minute.
I
Since you
was
called me out on this, since you called me out, what I said was, okay, that the wording in it would lead me to a conclusion that I wouldn't be surprised if there wasn't an election.
Yeah.
Okay? And now, there is, a referendum. There is a referendum.
I'm surprised.
Okay? No, I'm not surprised either way.
Sanctioned by the Gaming Commission.
Well, look, everything comes down to decisions that are made, decisions that are already made, okay? And while you may not think that it's an appropriate time, or maybe it's a little too soon to talk about some of these things because they're just getting off the blocks on it, this stuff is old.
Oh, yeah.
This is not new.
But you don't know what the outcome of this referendum is going to be. Like people, it can be a no again, and then the whole discussion is just.
Well, no, but that doesn't negate the need to discuss it, though, Jessica. That's what this is about.
But I still do. You know what? I've said it. You know, I didn't think. You know what I said, that if the outcome came out that the community in these surveys said that they didn't want it, or that it was the other way. If they had 52% of individuals in their poll recently that said no, and then they had 48 that said yes.
It was actually the opposite.
I know it was. But the reason, what I'm saying is, if it was the other way, Mohawk Council would have said, well, that's not enough to go by. We need to look at something else, and because the direction was always to go, the direction is always to go to, whether it's a referendum or decide that we're going to do it anyway. Everything indicates the same thing, and now they just allocated another $85,000 to that, and I thought we were broke.
Yeah, but why would you do all this stuff? I mean, it came down to, like, say, the last time we had a discussion, and they said, and by the way, I want to remind the community, okay, and we'll bring it up, might be fresh, okay, that the last referendum, one of the reasons we're having a referendum now is because the last referendum had certain wording, and one of the questions comes up, what's going to be the wording of this referendum? Okay, and I think we can discuss that now. We don't have to wait. One of the things is that the last referendum, they specifically said the question was regarding this particular proposal, left the door wide open.
Yes, you're right.
For this referendum
It's
to
well
happen.
worded, because, yeah.
Okay, is it because you're only voting on this particular one, and now we're at this one now. Okay, and so the big question is this going to be once and for all? Or is this until the next one?
Until the next one.
And then, and what's agreed upon before we even get to a decision to have, number one, the survey, number two, to say that you're going to have a referendum, and then to move ahead. And one of those things is you have an agreement somewhere which says, you know what, we'll consider whatever your outcome is so that you people can have a casino to take care of whatever you feel you need.
Two things.
Go ahead.
Well, first, just to clarify something, it wasn't just off the survey that they made their decision to have the referendum. It was all of phase 1 and 2, and that those were like those market assessments and the social impact assessments, along with the survey of like 400 community members or what, and it was 52% support, and I forgot my second point, but I just wanted to clarify that.
But you know, but what I was saying earlier, I understand that part. But what I was saying earlier was just that if it was the opposite, then like right now they're saying that was good enough because we had a majority of the people who were surveyed that agree that we should entertain the next phase. If it was the other way around, I think it would have been, well, maybe that they didn't have all the information, so we need to go to the next phase to give them that. I'm just, you know what, it's gonna go, right? It's gonna go.
Well, I'll give my thoughts when we come back from
it's gonna go. But let's take a break, and we'll continue this in a brief right after these messages. And welcome back to Straight Talk. Another lively discussion. Every time this subject comes up, the elections, the casino, or the laws, it's always going to be a lively discussion when it comes to that. We said before, and just again, the closer we get to the actual referendum, and if it goes that way, which it probably will, then we'll have a show, and I've said it again, specifically just on the casino and how that is, because that's a show on its own. I mean, there's other subjects that we just want to briefly touch on just for information purposes, but we've been dealing with this for how many years now, the casino? You think that in 20 years we'll still be doing this?
Well, it upsets me because it's hypocritical. Council on one hand says to move traditional, going back traditional, and casinos and gambling is totally against our ways. It's not in our culture. It's one of the four major rungs. And for us to be moving in this direction, it seems fruitless to me. I mean, what if our children going to learn from this? You know, how to be a better gambler? And I think there's other ways of putting ourselves on the map other than becoming Canadian citizens.
I mean, if you look at it at the end of the day, I guess there's some pluses if it came to fruition in regards to funding coming into the community, because everything is being cut back. How that's going to work is one thing, but the biggest thing, and we say it all the time when this subject comes up, what is the cost going to be down the road to the rest of the community? You know, the taxing issue and everything else. And
not only that, does the casino become incorporated? Is it a corporation in our territory? I mean, we have corporations now in our community. And the way I understand it, in accordance with the Indian Act, you can't have a corporation on an Indian reserve. So are we still an Indian reserve, I ask?
Well, I mean, all that's being done away with, Bo.
That's what I think the people in the general public have got to know that.
Sure.
So you know what I mean? It's something that's coming down. It's you can agree to disagree, or you can accept and
The
hopefully.
legitimate questions to ask, though, really, when you talk about cost, Mike, what does it cost the community now to have this discussion, and what is it already going to cost us in order to move to the next phase, and with a potential positive outcome for the supporters of the casino project, because it does mean something. As you talk about corporations being here, you talk about something and how this territory is being used will have to change in order for the governments outside to allow the Bank Council, the Mohawk Council of Ganawage to move ahead on a casino project. That's just plain. That's not opinion. That's a fact.
And in law, Quebec has the final say. Quebec has the say in jurisdiction over gaming in Quebec, and they haven't even been approached.
And then, well, we don't know that.
So what if the Quebec? So what if the people in Ganawage say yes through the referendum, and then Quebec says no? Is Ganawage going to go to war for have a casino?
Well, we discussed that the last time, and I think that I think that people said my opinion about that.
I still will say, though, that the fact that we're going through the exercise now, and that we have cozy relationship, the Bank Council has cozier relationships with the Minister of Indian Affairs, suggests to me that they've already discussed this. They've discussed the possible outcome of a positive vote and where to go with it.
And it would be a closed issue if it didn't go to a referendum, because even the province would say that, I'm sorry, you still have to follow procedures regardless of at the end of the day. Anyway, we'll come back to that at another show, and we'll come back to that when we get closer to that final day. They're saying that there's a possibility of it's going to happen before the elections. I don't know. I guess we'll wait and see. There are a few other things that we wanted to cover, though, like that's been happening in the community. I guess some of it, could be politics and some could be race. But there was a big issue, I guess, at the arena with one of the hockey teams where they locked a referee in the room, and
It was a group of players on the midget A team.
And they locked him in, and I guess they assaulted him, So the referees now don't want to come to Ganawagi to ref. This has been going on for years when stuff like that happens. You know, it's sometimes, I guess, at that age, you sort of put yourself in a position that you should never have been in, and the whole community ends up suffering for it, or the sports anyway. But
That's what the result of this one now is, that the team that these players were on were suspended indefinitely. And now all games in Ganawagi are suspended, so all the other teams have to go to surrounding arenas to play.
So it's a walk back from the thing about, because one of the things we heard was that all the team was suspended, period, and now it's just games in Ganawagi.
Well, that's why it's like unclear whether
All the playoff games, because if the referees don't want to come for one game, well, I guess they're making an announcement that they're not coming for any of the games.
No, the question the reason I bring it up is because it would seem to me that you have a minor hockey association which has governing board, governing rules, and one of the rules is on any sport is you never assault the referees under any circumstances, and then getting into this is not even on the ice. I mean, I find this is in the locker room.
Yeah.
So now you're into issues of forcible confinement, like. Who's guiding these players? You know, there might be issues underlying, because the issues of treatment of our players has come up in the past. But how you deal with those things is important.
well, I think that in this case, you know, right now that they're not really saying much more than what the first statements that they had said, and I think a lot of it has to do with not only what had happened, but the criminal act that happened. So
there's pending charges for
Yes, exactly.
at least 4 of these players who their midget A players are
And
between
they're-
like 15
and they're
and 17.
juveniles, so
Yeah.
and they're juveniles, so it's that becomes another.
Those juveniles are carrying the most frustration on their backs because of the indifferences we have in Ganawagi.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you look at the hockey system, I mean,
I think it's just bad sportsmanship.
yeah, it is. I mean, it's been going on for a long time. It happens to people from this community, or in hockey and other sports, when they're out of the community. It happens, you know, now it's happening here. It's got to be straightened out somehow. Frustrations are going to be there, but at the end of the day, we still have to at least have some dignity when it comes to that, and not use violence in order to get a point across for something that may or may not be done. Anyway, that's something that
We're losing respect.
yeah, and then, you know, and we all have to end up dealing with that for the kids coming up and that are in some of the same situations. So one of the other things is the hockey and the fights, but supposedly there was a fight that was an MMA fight, amateurs, that was supposed to be coming to the ranch the 31st of March, and because of the fire at the ranch, right now it's up in the air. But what I understand is there was I think five guys from the community that were supposed to be fighting, a couple from Six Nations, and so it was going to be more of a hometown fight.
That'd be nice.
And now they're not sure where it's going to be. It's an amateur, so they're talking about different places. Hopefully, they're saying maybe in early April that'll happen, and I'd like to be there. I mean, I was asked to ref, so, you know, I used to ref for many years professionally, so hopefully that'll happen, and we'll get to see that.
Actually, couldn't it happen at the arena?
No, it's not. It's I think they're having issues in regards to the sanctioning, but it's an amateur event, so that's up in the air how it goes. Yeah. There's a few other things I know where we have not much time left, but I want to cover them. We talk once in a while about the daycare here, Seven Generations Daycare. And I just want to mention that the Seven Generations Daycare is looking at doing an evening daycare we're looking at maybe 4:45 to maybe 11:15. So if anybody needs daycare for the evening time, because right now daycare is just during the day, and a lot of people work in the evenings and they don't have somebody to watch their kids, so we're looking at trying to accommodate those individuals who are in that situation. So it's not 100%, but if you're interested in having evening daycare, come to Seven Generations Daycare and fill out an application. And if there's a demand for it, if the need is there, then we'll incorporate an evening daycare. We're already in the works of doing that. to accommodate the individuals who are working evenings, we're going to be doing that. So come fill it out, and so it gives us an idea. There's around 9 spots right now, but there could be more if there's demand is there. And it's also subsidized, so we'll see how that's going to go. The one last thought we have before we wrap up is cattery.
They announced the date, finally. It's going to be on October 21st.
And it's the canonization.
Yep, like
They're
she
making
will
her
be a saint.
they're making her a saint after all these years. I guess for some it's a big thing, and for others maybe not.
Yeah, for the Catholic community, they're all excited. There's already like organizing like their trip to the Vatican City, and there's like all like you can contact like the church if you want to go, because there's gonna be like this huge group from Ganawage. So
Last thought on that, Bo?
I was asked about that, and my only remark was George Hill should re-record his song.
Which one?
He's got to tweet the song. Which one? The
But he
Mighty St.
I
Lawrence.
put Ganawage on the map.
That's right, the legend, George W.G.J. Hill.
Last thing. Last week we had a poll results in light of another recent home invasion. Do you think Ganawage is safe? People's 50%, 50% said no.
no, 50% said yes.
I mean, yes, excuse me. 40% said no, and 10% undecided.
So thanks for everyone who voted in that poll.
And then this week poll will be: will you participate in the casino referendum? And you can vote at www.mohawktv.ca. And that is our program today. Lively program. Bo, thanks for coming in. I hope to see you again in the future, and our panel. So that's it for this week, and we'll be back in 2 weeks' time with more Straight Talk.
So if you have any questions or comments surrounding this show or any other show, you can email us at mohawktv@hotmail.com or call us at 450-632-NEWS. That's 450-632-6397. And remember, if you want to sit here and go through the panel or discuss something or just come on as a guest, feel free to do that. So once again, that's Straight Talk, Nyawa, and Onagiwahi.
Ona.
Kanya ke haga thadi adaraste kayerniga hiadu zewaderoru.
Yaha